Scott with Polymer Clay TV, and today I wanted to tell you two things. That the newest Create Along box is now on sale, and you can find that at createalongbox.com. And I wanted to talk to you about signing your work. So one of the newest things that we have at Create Along is the ability to sign your work with a stamp. So these are acrylic stamps, and what they do is they make a raised impression of your signature, or you can even, like this says made by Kira, and it was done in my handwriting. So you can also have us make you one that has the fonts that you like. This is a tiny little one that's got it's going to be on a keychain so that I don't lose it. But basically you can order this up however you like. But the thing I like about it most is that your impression is actually raised up out of the clay instead of smushed down into it, which I think makes it a lot easier to read. And I just had some thoughts for you on how you could stamp directly into the clay. So for example, this bead is signed on the side and this one is signed on the back. Or you could make a plate that was pre-baked that you could stick into your artwork. Like this one is a little bigger for a larger item, and then this one was a smaller, thinner one that I put onto a bead. So let's get started. So here's one way of handling it. We can create a plate, which you can pre-bake. So I've got my signature. This is a larger one. You can order one like this too. And I'm going to press the clay on from the back. This is how I would always do it. And then peel it back gently, and you've got your stamp. And then you can put it on your baking sheet and cut it down to size and bake this so that it can go onto the back or front of whatever it is that you're creating. And the reason I say I would do it that way is because if you take this stamp and you mush it down onto your clay like this, you're trying to force the soft clay up into the hard stamp, and I just don't think that it comes out as well. I think that you get a fainter image that way. I mean, I still can see it, but you also risk getting it stuck to your work surface and smearing it when you pick it back up. So I would always do it from pressing it on from behind. When you're working with acrylic, it's not rubber, so it works a little differently, but the impression is always really clean and nice. So I wanted to show you, this one has two designs on it. One says Kira Sly Designs, which is the name of my Etsy shop, and the other side is my handwriting, and it just says Made by Kira. So for this one, I'm going to make a tube bead. I've rolled my clay down really thin. This is a number 4. And I want to take this Made by Kira, which is on one side here, and make an impression. And cut it out just the same way as before. So this can be a little tiny signature on the back of a tube bead. And you can play around and cut it as small as you want. These are just about 1/8 of an inch letters, but I really like that. It's going to make a nice little signature a way to sign something maybe that you're giving as a gift. Okay, so there's that. And then I'm going to make a tube bead, and I'm just going to sign it with my Kira Sly Designs text. So for that, I'm going to use my graduated set of aluminum rods, and I'm just going to use the smallest one from the middle of the stack because they stack together. So I've rolled a nice warm ball of clay, seamless, and I'm going to just push it onto this rod. I'm not going to worry too much about the ends right now, and I'm going to use a knitting needle to poke out this chunk of clay that gets stuck in the end. And I'm just going to form this around my rod. And then you can use a flat tool to flatten up the edges if that's the look you're going for. And just work on it until you like the shape. And the reason I have my mandala texture stack out here is because I'm going to put some texture on this as well. I think I'd like to cap these beads with a bead cap after, like in step 2, when I'm done baking this step, do a little more decorative stuff to it. So I'm going to just flatten them and leave it like that, and then add some texture. So I'm going to hang on to this and kind of roll my texture stack around it, like so. Maybe a couple times. Leaving room on the back side here for my signature. So this, you can practice with this thing, and you can really do some nice stuff. Like now I'm going to roll my signature onto it, so that right there I have my name. And then you can fix the shape of your bead. And I'm going to use a little pigment powder on it and play around until I like what I've got. But I just wanted to give you a couple little ideas. You know, using this tool and trying not to get the lines, like it's got sharp edges and stuff, but if you just roll it on like in one motion, you can get your signature to show up. And it's a nice way to sign your stuff. Let's see. And these are all designed to go together, so you can mess around until you really like what you've got. And then I was thinking I would use my pigment powders to just highlight the design. And I'm using the jewel green because it's very similar to this souffle color that I've got. So it's going to be metallic and matte depending on how you look at it. So we've had lots of questions about how to use pigment powders, and this is one of them, to just kind of bring out a design so that you can see it better. And you can do this with a really contrasty color, or you can do it with a similar color like I'm doing now. And we'll bake this. Here's another idea. I'm going to form this one into more of a lozenge shape. And one of the things I really like about these texture stacks is the ability to do this. And get complementary designs on both sides. And now I've got an edge where I can write my name. Right on the edge of the bead. And then use maybe a different color to highlight that design. You could even make reversible beads with two completely different colors or designs on the sides. And then it's signed, so no one has to guess who made that bead. I love it. I hope that you come up with even more interesting ways to use yours. Alright, here's all my stuff out of the oven. So I've got a plate now with my name on it. It's a little piece of clay that I can stick into the back of, say, a light switch plate or a journal or anything that's a little bit larger that I wanted to put my name on. So I have this now ready. And then I've got this tiny one, which I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that. And I've got my beads. So here on the side of this bead, my name is there. It's hard to see on video, I think, but it's just a little raised imprint of my name. And then on the side of this bead, same thing. It says Kira Sly, and because of video quality, I'm not real sure that you're going to be able to see that, but I will put pictures of these things in Polymer Clay Tribe on Facebook so that you can see them more up close, and I'll put them on the blog too at polymerclaytv.com. Now, I wanted to show you two things. What I was going to do to this bead. So I've rolled out some Primo accents in antique gold to a number 3, and I'm going to grab a plunger cutter. So I'm going to use a flower and just plunge out 2 shapes. Whoops, that one went flying. And what I'm going to do with this is make a little bead cap for the end of my tube bead there. So this is a way to make decorative finishes for the beads that you make yourself. So as you put this on, you can decide if you want to texture it, if you want to leave it the way it is. Maybe you want it to match what you got going on in the rest of the bead, so you can put a little imprint on the end. And of course you want to put a hole in it, so the hole that you put decides the thickness of the cord or wire that you can use with this. So I'm going to make it sort of big so that I can put maybe a waxed cotton thread or something in there. And for this, I'm using, I buy packs of sock needles. So this is a sock needle, knitting needle. So now I have a nice big hole, and I'll just bake this one more time so that I've got this cute little bead with end caps on it now. You can do the same thing on this. So for example, on a bead that's shaped this way, you might want to have it coming over in the front and the back, however you want to do it. And again, you can choose what size. If you want to put a small hole for a small cord or wire, or you can widen the hole. You could put a cap on one end and not the other. Let's say, I think maybe I'll put a nice big gemstone bead dangling from the bottom. So I would just put the cap on one side. And now I wanted to make a bead and embed this in it so that you can see the difference between putting the stamp directly onto the bead, which you might have to practice with a little bit, or making a nice pre-made plate that you can put on the bead, and that way you know that it's perfect. And I'm just pushing the clay out of my aluminum thing each time, because if you let it build up in there, it could be real hard to get it out. But let's say you wanted to make a set of 2 beads, and this would be great if you know, another way you could do this is by actually stamping into it with little letter stamps. Let's say you wanted to put like, make a mommy bead and put the names of all their kids going around it, but you want to make sure that they're all done properly without messing up the bead. So you could do different names on a little plate like this and stick them in. So there's lots of different ways that we can use this technique. In fact, this time I might kind of go from 2 sides and then twist my bead and do 2 others on the other sides, like this. So I've sort of got 4 designs going around, and then choose where I want to put the nameplate and just lay it on. Because baked clay can be stuck to non-baked clay, and it will bake right on there. So now this bead has a signature on the back, and you could do things on the front. You could do, I mean, there's so many different ways that you can finish a bead. So let's say I want to make sure that this has a design on the front and the signature on the back. So there you go. Okay, so I hope that gave you some thoughts and ideas about how you could sign your jewelry and small items. This little nameplate could go on lots of different things. It could go on the inside of a bracelet. It could go, again, on a journal, a light switch plate, on the back of a fairy door, anything that you want to sign. It's always nice to have some kind of a signature stamp. So have fun, and we'll see you next time on Polymer Clay TV.